The Nebraska Rental Agreement. In this video, we will tell you about the most noteworthy aspects of rental agreements in the state of Nebraska. What is a rental agreement? A rental agreement, or a lease, is a document that outlines the arrangement between two parties regarding a property rental. The one who's paying rent is called a tenant, while the owner of the property, who lets the other party use it under certain conditions, is called a landlord. The parties may also be called a lessor and lessee. Typically, a rental agreement lasts for 6 or 12 months, with rent being paid every month or every week. There is one federal disclosure that works for all lease agreements in the United States. This is called the lead disclosure, and it requires the landlord to tell the tenant about all known lead paint hazards. They should also provide the state-approved version of the pamphlet, Protect Your Family from Lead in Your Home. However, this requirement applies to not all types of residential dwellings. Required disclosures. Apart from the above-mentioned disclosure, the landlord should also disclose to the tenant the names and business addresses of the people who own and are authorized to manage the rental unit. Security deposits. According to the Nebraska Annotated Code, the maximum security deposit cannot exceed 1 month's rent. The pet deposit is also allowed, but it cannot exceed 1/4 of 1 month's periodic rent. The landlord can use the deposit to pay unpaid rent or repair any property damages caused by the tenant after conducting an inspection for damages on the premises. The landlord should return the security deposit within 14 days after the termination of the tenancy via mail, along with the itemized list of damages caused by the tenant, if any. If the landlord fails to return the security deposit, they may have to recover an amount equal to 1 month's periodic rent or 2 times the amount of the security deposit, whichever is less, as liquidated damages. Landlord access. The Nebraska laws require the landlord to send at least 1 day notice to the tenant, notifying them about the intent to enter the premises to inspect it, make necessary or agreed repairs, etc. Only emergency cases don't require sending a notice to the tenant. In all other cases, the visit should happen only at reasonable hours. Termination of agreement. In case of month-to-month tenancy, at least 30-day notice prior to the termination date is needed by either the tenant or landlord. For a week-to-week tenancy, at least a 7-day notice before the termination date is required by either of the parties. Notices for non-payment and non-compliance. If the tenant fails to pay rent, the landlord should send at least a 7-day notice to the tenant requiring them to pay or to vacate the premises. If there is another breach of the rental agreement, at least a 30-day notice to remedy the breach in 14 days or quit is required from the landlord by Nebraska law.